Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Now enjoy the Practical Guitarist podcast.
Good evening, Jim. At least we only got one topic in before we realized that my audio was not functional. We've had to throw away a couple of episodes lately for stupid stuff like that. So I would rather catch it and then not throw away an episode. So
folks, we've spent as many as 2 hours on an episode and
multiple times and just have like nothing come out basically. So all right, so let's talk about the what's new. I got a power cable. This is for the HX Stomp. I located a place that actually had these in stock. There were only 2 that I could find on Reverb at all in the United States.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep. I mean, I hope you don't need one, because good luck. They might show up. They might not. It could be. You
got one of those too.
It could be 6 months before we see any here in the States. So, which leads me to believe, like, I wonder if I throw up my 9-volt cables, if they're going to be worth some money here.
I know, right?
You could have a cottage industry right now if you know how to solder and you got the right barrel jacks. You know,
there you go.
There's your cottage industry. All right. So there's that, and then. What else did I talk about? There was something else for what's new tonight that I mentioned briefly.
Latvia.
Oh,
I said,
Latvia.
I've got a package coming from Latvia here shortly.
From Dr. Doom.
Yep. Dr. Doom is sending me a package. He asked me how I wanted it.
I ordered Grub screws because PRS can't provide them to me. Okay. So I reached out to PRS and I asked the question. Hey, my Grub.
First, go over what a Grub screw is.
Okay, so the Grub screw is the tremolo screw that holds the trem arm in place on a PRS. It's a tiny little screw. It's like 8 millimeters long, and I think it's like 5 millimeters wide or something. And it just you Allen key it in there, and it holds the trem screw in place. When I first got my guitar, I ratcheted mine all the way down, but I went to go use my trem for like the first time the other day, and I've had this guitar for 4 months, and apparently my Grub screw fell out somewhere, which is like, okay. That's terrible. Guitar's still functional without it, but it's got play in it. I don't like it.
It's barely bigger than that.
Yeah, it's really, really small. So I reached out to PRS for a replacement, and it took them a while to get back to me. When they finally got back to me, they said, "Here, buy this kit, $25 kit that has every screw I could possibly need on the trem, including the Grub screw, but only one of them." So I'm like, why would I spend $25 on something that should be like $1 or at maximum $1, right? It should be $1 and I should get 20. So anyway, so I'm like, all right, you know what? We're not going to do this. They sent me over to StuMac. They said, look for this. And they gave me the part dimensions and I looked around. They didn't have any Grub screws there, at least not that I could find. So I finally just said, you know what? The hell with this. I'm going to Amazon. I'm going to order them from Amazon. I did manage to get some. They'll be delivered this week, but it's, you know, what the hell is PRS thinking?
Hopefully the threads are right.
What I mean, well, they will be because I had all the dimensions, including the thread dimension. But it was an M8, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, so I was like, what the hell were they? What the hell was PRS thinking? Like, why wouldn't they just send me some? Because I found out like they've been sending people Grub screws for years via envelope. They'd send 5 or 10 of them in an envelope to somebody. Right. But it's like, of course I call up and it's like, oh, hell no, we're not going to give that. No, we're not doing that anymore. You got to buy the $25 kit. Who are they selling to?
Now, let me say this, because we talked about something else earlier that may be the reason, but they should have shared that reason if it is the reason. And that is, we can't get none.
Yeah, I highly doubt that. But
I doubt it, but I'm just saying, because
it's a possibility.
As I said before, I find it almost impossible to believe that they don't have some laying around on a desk.
Yeah.
Or in a drawer somewhere.
No, they probably buy them by the million. I mean, it's just nuts. They buy them by the weight, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into segment 1. And we're on segment 1. So, this leads me to another problem with my PRS. So I've had it for 4 months, and I'm going to slow down the episode a little bit because I want to make sure I get this right when I talk about it. On the edge of my guitar, from the strap pin up to really where the forearm contour is, which on this guitar, it's not a contour, it's a bevel. There is a spot where I've had roughness forming on the edge, like the 90-degree edge of the guitar. Okay. And I had it buffed out, and it was fine. And I was told that it was probably wear. So I adjusted some things, and I realized what was causing it was TechFlex cable. You know, the expandable sleeving stuff you put on cables to protect the cable.
Now you're talking about like through here,
yes,
or are you talking about
on the edge, like that where the binding is. Okay,
right here?
No, on the top, above that.
On the top,
because the cable would wrap over underneath my strap, so you know,
right,
and it would and then the strap would pin it to the guitar.
Right, but it's not from your arm being over it.
No.
Really? So it's right here where I use every kind of cable, and you can see I have nothing.
I had wear from there all the way up to where your forearm sits. Like underneath my forearm, where it would be.
Wow! I mean, I play this guitar all the time, and I'm still trying. I
played 2 to 4 hours a day. I've played probably in venues 8 times, 9 times since I got it. Both at shows and jams.
She's got some, t-shirt wear and
yeah, that's normal. Like I'm starting to get that stuff in the back of the guitar too. I mean, I got a dent in the plastic, actually, believe it or not.
It's fine. That's to be expected. But and I've got a couple of sweat spots on it that I need to wipe off. To have that should take a long time of a lot of.
It's not on the flat part of the guitar. It's literally where the binding is on that guitar.
Right here.
Yeah, right where the edge that 90-degree curve is.
Right.
Okay, so
wow.
So I get it buffed out. It was fine. I'm like, no big deal. I'm like, it's now buffed out. Like, I know that the finish is soft. It can be buffed, and that, you can take that kind of stuff out of the guitar. It's not a big deal. Yep. Flash forward another month, and changing my habits. I no longer use cables that have any sort of nylon webbing on the part that attaches the guitar, and I no longer use any TechFlex cables with that guitar. And you'd think after a month, like, the wear would have just never come back, but it's back.
Right.
And I'm a little frustrated because, my dealer told me, they said, it's probably your strap. Well, it's on the top face of the guitar. So if you'd like to explain to me how my strap is rubbing against the top of the guitar, I would love to hear it, because that would be surprising to me. And the way I wear it, I'm a fat guy, so it's pretty much more likely it's going to rub against the back of the guitar than anything else. So it's like, okay, guy, all right, whatever. But it led me down this rabbit hole, and I've actually reached out to PRS about this, because I'm like, something about this is wrong. Like, this is not normal, and it may be normal for this year of guitar because it's the first year they've done this finish, which is a specialty item. It's nitro over acrylic lacquer. So it's nitro. It's a nitro finish from the marketing perspective, but it's a poly finish from the durability perspective, because the undercoat is polyurethane. It's acrylic. Sorry, acrylic. It's polyurethane underneath. That's what acrylic is. It's plastic.
Poly.
Okay, poly is plastic. That's what it is. So anyway, it led me down this rabbit hole of learning a lot more about poly versus nitro debate and what nitro and poly finishes are like. So we actually have sort of half done this topic before, and I want to try to do it in a little bit more consistent way. So I think the first thing to do is to talk about nitro and what it is, and then we'll talk about the additives that can be added to any finish, because it will also apply to poly, and why they do that. And then we'll talk about poly and the benefits of it and why you should choose one over the other. and why it's kind of a peculiar decision.
Or why you might prefer one to the other.
Right, and it's a peculiar decision that PRS has made to actually back off of poly, which is kind of weird to me. And
I think that's a marketing thing, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we're going to talk about who PRS is actually selling to. And I am not their target market. It's very clear to me now at this point. It doesn't make me like their guitars any less, but it's like, it doesn't make me like the company anymore, if you know what I mean. So, all right. So we'll start off. We'll talk about nitro. Jim, nitro is nitrocellulose, which is plant material. It's plant fibers.
That's right. It's made of fibers of things that lived.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But, but plants, not necessarily animals.
Right,
but
not animals, right. But it can also be, from what I understand, I might be wrong on this, the chemists will jump on my back. From what I understand, it can also be like not real plants. They're plants, but not plants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's the chemical compounds you would find in plants.
Right.
And it's
which is the cells. That's what you call cellulose. That's the way that a plant, if you ever looked at a plant under a microscope and you got the way that the cells line up, that's where the cellulose.
The other funny part about it is, of course, that nitro is like kind of a gimmicky term in that nitro obviously is supposed to be plant-based, and it can be chemically made plant-based, but it can also include additives that are basically polyurethane. Okay,
that's correct.
So it's
and,
like, is it really nitro?
Right. Well, yeah. So nitro, the whole benefit of nitro, I want to go with the benefit of what they say. Now, I'm not a painter and I'm not a finisher. I'm just going by what
my brother actually is. So I have a little bit of inside track on that, but
is that nitro dries fast, so relatively quickly. It
dries fast for extra coats, but it actually takes longer to dry. Because
there's been people who say, does your nitro actually ever set? And then there's the
but that has a lot to do with additives too, because that's another whole thing. So you're absolutely correct.
And so the idea, at least with what Gibson, now of course, again, we're going by what they're telling us. It's marketing. Remember that. Is, hey, we can put it on really thin, and it'll protect your guitar, but it's super thin, which is supposed to allow in the old wood to breathe and all the other shit. And don't think I'm buying into that bullshit. I'm just saying that's their marketing scheme, is that it allows the wood to breathe and it can be really super thin and blah, 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 whatever. I just know I like it. I like the way it wears and I'm fine with it. But let's go to poly, because a lot of people think that poly is cheap, and poly goes on cheap guitars, because poly can go on cheap guitars if done cheaply. But so could nitro, by the way.
Well, so the problem with doing nitro is not actually the finish itself. Like, nitro itself is cheap. It's the facility required to do it, because you have to have proper environmental conditions dictated by the EPA to spray nitro, and in many countries it's completely illegal. I think you can spray nitro in China.
Remember the story I told you about the guy that made Slash's guitar, the famous 59 Anaconda,
the fake
the
59
guitar.
Yeah,
that fake guitar, which everybody knew, including Slash, was fake. Nobody tried to claim it was real. That guitar, that guy died because he was breathing nitro. Yeah, because he wasn't. So it is very dangerous.
Yeah,
those who don't.
It's not good stuff, and it's also highly flammable. It can blow shit up, quite frankly. So you want to build a bomb, maybe nitro might work for you.
Just ask Peter Frampton.
Yeah,
that's why he's got the Phoenix. But anyway, go ahead.
So nitro is that is what it is, and it's valued in finishes. A lot of people think that the benefits of nitro, of course, is it breathes, so the guitar can breathe, man. Do you really care if the wood gets air to it? I don't think it matters all that much. It may actually help the guitar dry out because there's still moisture content in wood no matter what you do to it.
Right.
And so because it's a finish that gets applied and it actually is porous, whereas polyurethane tends to be won't allow any moisture in or out.
Right.
And so nitro is valued for that. It is valued for the fact that it goes on extremely thinly. And because depending on what additives you put in it, it can be extremely hard or it can be extremely rubber-like, okay?
Yep.
And so when you were talking about nitro drying faster, when you put paint on, when you spray nitro paint, that's not such a big issue. But when you're talking about the actual finish coat that goes on top, the clear coat, that's where nitro gets interesting because most of the time companies want to put plasticizers in it to prevent quality control issues so that the guitar will dry faster. But if you put too much plasticizer in it, it actually doesn't ever dry because because you put so much so plastic example, something with a lot of plasticizer in it, it's caulk. Okay.
Yep.
Use caulk, or you use caulk in your bathroom. It always stays like rubber, right? It never actually fully hardens. That's why, because it's got so much plasticizer in it. It's an oil base that basically it never breaks down. And so that chemical composition is the same thing they do with nitro and poly. They use plasticizers in both to actually make the finish more durable, but they have to walk a fine line because if you add too much of that, it makes the guitar sound like crap. That's essentially what Paul Reed Smith argues. He says, we want to go for a hard finish, which is exactly what he's done here. He's created an uber hard finish that is like easy to chip because of its location on the guitar, but also because it's harder, right? So it's just chipping under tiny conditions. Now, granted, if it were super brittle, I'd be taking huge flakes of the guitar off at this point, but that's not what's happening.
What you do see in some of the inexpensive poly finishes, if they get a crack, they will literally go like if somebody has fingernail polish, and you can tell they left it on for a while, starts to flake off. That kind of thing.
And that's, oftentimes that's a result of a bubble of air that actually got trapped during the finishing process because sometimes the guitar wasn't completely smooth. And so what happens is it heats up and cools down, and eventually that air bubble expands and contracts, and you get a bubble in your finish, and then it breaks, and then you've got this giant chunk of finish that just falls off the guitar basically. And I have seen many guitars like that over the years where either because somebody dented it or because of one of those kind of situations, the finish just kind of flakes off, and it's giant chunks. Like we're talking, you can have a piece the size of your fist come off your guitar. Now, so what is your finish's actual job on a guitar? Because I think it's important to talk about that before we discuss poly. And I think you know this, Jim, but people seem to think that like it's either a purely aesthetic thing. Actually, from my comments with other people, it's become very clear that people think it's an aesthetic thing. You can't really have a guitar that has no finish on it and expect it to last for any length of time, because the kinds of wood we use for guitars are susceptible to moisture. Well, pretty much all wood is susceptible to moisture. And even if you were to tongue oil it, like you would have to reapply tongue oil frequently. Otherwise,
all the time. Think about this for people who think about if you had a piece of your deck, right?
Yeah.
The wood that you have on your deck, right? That's typically pine or whatever. You're going to have to even if it gets rained on, that's not like you sweating on it and rubbing that sweat across it. That's a completely different thing.
So like Kiesel does raw tone, which is like a really thin poly that goes over the guitar with no clear coat or anything. And they put grain sealer on it to help prevent any moisture getting into the guitar. But even then, if they didn't have a finish applied to that guitar, it would still be subject to more problems than, a guitar that actually has like a decent weight finish on it.
That's right.
So, and it's important to note that like you can have a clear that's satin, Like that,
Yep.
a satin guitar has a clear on it. It's just not a glossy clear.
Right.
So, you know, it's basically the same concept. So now we get into poly. So how poly differs? Poly is obviously completely synthetic. Okay, it's plastic. That is exactly what it is. When you hear the word poly, think plastic. It is. It is often.
It was invented in Germany in 1937.
It is often sprayed, and it is often hardened with UV or with the application of an additional thing called a UV hardener, which is essentially just another chemical that causes the finish to harden. Even using hardeners and UV lamps, sometimes they'll let them sit for a month before they completely harden. But the reality is those finishes have less quality control issues because they're hard as shit, and they usually go on pretty thick, so they can deal with, you know, something like an unattractive wood. Classic examples of those kind of guitars are like Fender. Stuff Fender puts out is all basically poly now. They used to do a lot more nitro back in the day, but that was because poly was expensive. They made the switch to poly, I think it was in 1968.
60s, yeah.
Yeah, it was like it was in the mid 60s. I think it was 68. Which you know, a lot of people think that was it 60? No, I think it's
it lines up with what I understand was in the 60s. I don't know if it was 68, but I know it was in the 60s.
Yeah, I think it was like 68. It was between 68 and 72, because I know that the 68s are still highly sought after. Okay. Yeah. And as soon as they go to poly, that's when the prices drop on them like a rock. And it's partially because people have this voodoo mythology about poly versus nitro. And here's where we wanted to talk about the price gap thing. So it's the same stuff. You can still add plasticizers to it. You can actually add stuff that makes the finish harder. You can spray poly on very thinly. It doesn't protect as well when it's thin, and that's partially because it dries much harder than nitro does. So, but it's not prone to checking, which is another thing. So like when we talk about nitro checking, what that is the guitar expands and contracts, and it causes the finish to split. That's basically what it is. And that's because the finish breathes, so it can allow moisture into the wood that allows it to expand and contract. Okay. So poly, because it's non-porous, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And so you can still get cracks and stuff in it, but it would be mostly impact type stuff. And it's usually harder than your pick. So you're not going to wear through poly. It's just not. I've never seen a guitar that like had like a hole where somebody had worn through the finish in poly. Now that's not to say it doesn't happen, but it's not likely.
Yeah, because people. Let me just say this when it comes to a poly finish. So you see these guys they talk about, and I use that term in a broad.
Yeah, just people.
That take poly finishes off of a guitar, and I don't care if it's in an expensive guitar or an expensive guitar. That takes like a belt sander. I mean, it's like,
oh yeah, it's really hard. You have to scrape it off with like a paint scraper and use chemicals or heat it. It's awful.
Yep. I saw a YouTuber do the chemical thing where he used chemicals.
The chemical stripper,
melt the stuff so that he could take it off. And even then,
you're still going at it with a paint scraper. It's just insane.
It was hard to get. He thought that he could just put that chemical on there and it would come off easily. And this was a guy he's a professional finisher somewhere in Europe that does guitars for the Stars and shit like that.
It's a brutal process. It
is. So poly's not going to wear nitro. We'll wear nitro.
Nitro you can take off with acetone. You want to remove the finish? Just spray some acetone on it and wipe it with a rag. It'll come right off.
Yep. If you're taking your fingernail polish off and you get it near that guitar, you might take a little bit.
Yeah. Be careful. Don't paint your nails next to your guitar. If you got a nitro guitar. All right, so that's the 101 of it. And so like, what is right for a player? Okay, so at least in my mind, we were talking about the budget end of the thing and like how everybody assumes that poly is reserved for inexpensive instruments, but like Sir guitars are poly. Like a lot of high end brands are poly. I
A lot
believe
of your
everything
Fenders are
Ibanez
poly.
does is poly. Everything Ibanez does is poly.
Yeah, I believe that. I would think Music Man is poly.
Music Man is poly. I think all of these companies have probably done some run of nitro at some point. It's just a thing that happens from time to time.
I know Fender up in the custom shop stuff does nitro, but
yeah, you can get poly in the custom shop if you want it, which is, and people actually ask for that, which is why I'm saying this. Like, I think the poly gets a bad rep because a lot of the cheap poly guitars are awful. Like Epiphones, for example, are sort of known for being like the crappiest poly because they put it's not really that, they put the finish on thick, and because it's an import guitar, they would rather err on the side of making sure that the guitars come in and look decent rather than come in and have to get thrown into the dumpster. Or as Gibson likes to do, run over with a giant piece of construction equipment.
I don't think they like to do that, but that is pretty funny.
But I mean, it's relevant. It's relevant.
Yeah. I just find it funny. You're right. The inexpensive guitars. Look, as a guy who worked at and goes to Guitar Center quite a bit, I get to see a lot of scratch and dent. You know what most of the scratch and dent is?
Fender.
It's Fender / Squier, mostly Squier. In the guitar and bass realm, Gretsch, Epiphone, that somebody picked up and bumped into an amp, bumped it into a display, bumped it into another guitar.
It's not a
shock.
shock.
Two of them.
Yeah,
and it wasn't that hard. It wasn't like the person did a Garth Brooks and Ty England on stage with it.
No, and the funny part is, like, you can actually repair those finishes pretty well. I mean, you can do nitro. You can do a lot more with nitro in terms of repair. And there's still enough people that are super familiar with nitro that if you do have to have nitro stuff repaired, that like they can drop fill and do all kinds of crazy stuff to make it work. Whereas poly, it's a little bit more difficult. But I mean, they still do. I've seen people do super glue repair on poly, which is like, it's maddening when you see somebody do it. You're like, really? They cut it, and I've seen them actually like take a razor blade and cut out a hole, and then they went, just like, what?
Yeah, because if you, that's to make it look nice and neat.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, because it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's what I was about to say. I would recommend it if you not necessarily you have to. I would recommend if you had Gibson do it, either have a Gibson authorized or a Gibson themselves do it, because problem is then you get a little certificate that says it was done properly.
And they match the paint.
Resales, right.
And they match the paint, which is a big deal. Okay, because it's still going to be visible under a glow lamp. I mean,
you know what I learned? You want to hear something amazing that I did not know? Red. The reason red is used a lot is to hide. I didn't know this because I could see every little detail in the wood, but believe it or not, it's used to hide flaws in the wood, even in transparent finishes. I did not know that.
Yes,
I had no idea that red was used to hide,
because the stain is the pigment that they use for reds, it is like way more powerful and potent, and so it can just wipe away minor imperfections in wood. Like if you got a green like stain in the wood, you can put red on it just disappears,
and it hides it. It's like what? I did not know that. Because I love my red guitar. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's the Eric Clapton '64 red, but red cherry. But that is funny that I found that out. And you were talking about the aesthetic, and that's what I was about to go to. So there's two sides of it, right? You were talking about. Let's finish what you were talking about, which is polyurethane doesn't necessarily have to go on cheap guitars.
Right. And actually the argument I was really kind of make was like, even sound quality wise, I think people put way too much emphasis on polyurethane versus nitro, because I've played some great sounding poly guitars and I've played some great sounding nitro guitars, and it doesn't really matter. Like, pick the one you like, pick the one that works best for you. If you're concerned about durability, probably go with poly, but just remember nitro is going to be easier to repair. So it honestly shouldn't make much of a difference. Which is why I'm still kind of ticked about my PRS, because it actually does make a little bit of a difference in this situation, because now I'm like, this guitar is going to have unnatural wear on it. It's going to look really, really weird when, you know, there's like a big chunk of finish missing around the edge up there.
You know, I look at, I have friends who have really cool guitars, right? We've talked about these. You've seen them out in places. This is what I was going to go with nitro. So this is the other side of it and what you were talking about, and this is the aesthetic, right? I see old Gibsons and Fenders, by the way, and Fenders. I should say that. Let me just say old guitars. They get a lot of play, and that neck wear starts to come in, and that arm thing starts to come in. And you know what that tells me? That's a guitar that's got a lot of really cool stories, and it's a guitar that's
mine's only a year old.
And it tells me I'm a romantic about it. I got a guy, he's just a little older than me. He looks a lot older. He looks great for 74. Thing is, he's only in his 50s. But the thing is, he's got a guitar that would have been the same age if I still had mine from when I was in my teenagers. That all the wear is gone from the neck. Every bit of nitro is gone. It's a 79 Les Paul standard. And it looks like a satin finish. I mean, that thing, there's no gloss left to it at all, anywhere. And if there is, I don't know where. Maybe around the input jack somewhere.
Would that have been during their poly years?
It might have been. It's 79.
Because Gibson did spray poly for a while. I thought.
Did they?
I thought it was in the 70s.
This was a 79 Les Paul standard.
So that would have, if it was done, that would have been the right time for it.
It would have been, yeah. That was definitely in the dark era of Gibson. But not to say, again, I'm not saying that poly was bad. I'm just saying I think it's nitro just because of the way the wear patterns are.
Yeah, it probably is because it's a custom. Yeah. So I would assume that would have still been nitro at that time.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful guitar. I mean, you know, if it was a studio, I would have said, yeah, it's definitely poly. I mean, but the thing that is what I was getting to is this, that I'm waiting for that day when, oh, by the way, my guitar's name has been changed, and its name is now Riker because it's my number one. Oh. So all the Star Trek references, you guys can laugh at it.
Well, I have a number 2. It's my Shengzai.
Yeah, yeah, that's what the number 2 references to. Yeah, it's just funny that I was just sitting there and I was driving to a gig and it's sitting on the seat beside me this week, and I look over and I go, engage number 1, engage number 1 or number 1 engage, and then I was like, oh, its name is Riker. It's got to be Riker. So it's been changed. It's William Riker now.
Take us out, number 1.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that when it comes to just like what you were talking about, I was watching a special on what's his name, Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo, right?
Yep.
That guy, because he rarely put all the strings on his guitars. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
He played Strats. Sometimes he'd have 2, 4, 3 strings.
It's however many he had at that time.
Yeah, rarely 6 strings, which is funny if you watch the stuff in the old days. And what he did, because he didn't like to have his pedals on the floor, he taped them. There was Velcro years, there was duct tape years.
Yes.
To the guitar, so that he could change them while he was playing during the song. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought that there's a guy that did not give and there's a band that did not give 2 flying rats' asses about the finish on their guitar.
Yeah.
At all. And there's so many guitar players. One of the most famous guitars sounds that people cannot duplicate is there's a song called Spirit in the Sky by a guy named Greenbaum.
Yep.
You know the song.
Yep.
The Spirit in the Sky. Anyway, that song has a Telecaster with a fuzz box built in.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. And so when we talk about all these, you know, we've talked about that before, you and I, on the show, on the side especially. People, stop freaking worrying about this crap, you know?
Yeah.
It's a poly guitar, it's a nitro guitar. Do you like it? Does this inspire you? Do you play it? Do you love it?
And that
Go ahead.
That brings us to the last point. So circling back on the whole thing, back to PRS.
That's right. To you. That's right.
This tells us some stuff about PRS's thought process. I don't know Paul himself, what his, you know, what was going through his mind when they decided they were going to make the switch to nitro. I do know their core clientele has been all right. There's a big Gibson versus PRS thing. It's a pissing match. It's a dick measuring contest is what it is. It's a bunch of people being like, I got PRSs and I got Gibsons and I got custom shop Gibsons. Well, I got Wood Library. Okay.
Yep.
you can see where this is going. And it's like,
I got True Story.
mine are all nitro finished. Okay. And the PRS guys are going, man, I wish mine was nitro finished. And it doesn't matter whether it's nitro finished or not. It has to do with finish hardness and thinness of application. So for like Paul's perspective in marketing over at PRS, I think they made the switch to nitro to sell to the blues lawyers and the rock doctors. I think they have made a very concerted effort that they don't give a rat's ass about the S2 line, like the people that are buying their working man guitars and actually using them to work. Which is what I am, right? Like I may not be a professional musician in the sense that I don't make my entire living off of it, but it's a working man's guitar. All right. I didn't buy a core model, a $4,000 guitar. I bought an S2, a $1,500 to $1,700 guitar. So that's why I'm like, I'm just kind of scratching my head on this whole nonsense. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you guys, you know, have decided that you're going to go to a nitro finish that wears like shit. Now, they had problems with the poly before. So we don't know what the extent of that is. None of us have data on that. So we could be just blowing smoke out our asses. So fair warning. But I have to believe the poly finishes were probably better than the nitro finishes they're spraying right now. I have to believe that because, I mean, my perspective with the instrument I have, either this one's screwed up for some reason, or that, and I found out there are other people having issues with it, or they just have a really shitty process for nitro so far. And anybody who bought a 2021 nitro finished PRS, you're not going to be very happy with your finish in a couple of years. And they're not making any inroads to make this right with anybody from what I can see. So it's like, wow, that kind of sucks. Granted, it was actually a little bit of solace in my mind when I saw nobody else was getting like refins or anything like that, because I'm kind of sitting there and I'm thinking, well, that means that my guitar will look like just every other 2021 35th anniversary PRS. It'll be chipped to shit if it gets played. And so it is what it
going to be
is.
played.
Yeah, I'm going to play the shit out of mine. Like it's. I'm
sure there's some dinkwad that's got an S2 that they've got in a collection, because there's somebody who there's these people called what do they call it? Completionist.
Yeah,
they've got to have one of everything, right?
Well, everybody I talk to who's got PRS, like they're like, I've got 4, I've got 7, I bought 4 last year. They're all 2021s. What? What are you doing with them? Are you on tour? I mean, like, you know, it's like.
It's funny, right? It really is. It's funny.
Well, I got to have one for every tuning.
Yeah. So I get. What was I saying? Oh, so my new Gibson, my custom shop, and I say custom shop on purpose because obviously it's it's actually two physical shops. I'm sure they're in the same building, but it's two physical shops. I mention that because I have my relatively new Les Paul right behind me, and I've got this Les Paul, and and I've got this 335. The 335 and the Les Paul behind me came from the regular American shop, right? This one came from the custom shop.
Right.
Now I know why some people say, "Man, there's too much nitro on the back of the neck." Like a little bit too much.
Which guitar has too much?
The custom shop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's got a lot more there's a lot more nitro on the custom shop. And I think it's because it's white, and the white finish guitar has a tendency to wear noticeably faster than the black, because you can wear a black one, but the black over wood. Remember, we were just talking about red over wood.
Right.
I think that they don't care about the American, ones that just go out, right? What do they call that? They don't call it American shop. They call it something else, but their regular standard shop. But I think that they want that white one to last white longer to maintain that thing, that aura. I'm just guessing.
The part you would be in contact with wouldn't be the color; it would just be the clear.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of clear coat there.
Yeah, so they probably have just made it so that
or maybe so it doesn't yellow as fast.
Or maybe
because I know that the white one's yellow.
Maybe
will happen.
Well, yeah, but they won't now, because they use a product in the finish that actually prevents the UV degradation.
The UV, right?
Yeah, it fights the UV degradation. It will never yellow like the old ones did.
It shouldn't. I hope not.
It probably. I would think at this point that would be very unlikely. But because those things were yellowing before they came out of the store. I mean, like, it was like ridiculous. But those that like having the extra finish on the neck could just be something as simple as an oversight. I mean, could be. I wouldn't even worry about it. I mean, it's going to wear off eventually anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Or you could sand it down and shine it up and not worry about it then.
Yeah. Once I've had it a couple of years, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's switch to the next topic.
Yep.
All right, Jim, we got Petrucci's Majesty here. We're going to talk about Petrucci's Majesty and his kind of what the hell comment. I don't even know the what the hell comment. You can run with this one because this is your topic, and I'll play interference.
All right, so Petrucci's Majesty allegedly, and I want to speak to this on a few different levels, so I'm going to go for a little bit. So he was in an interview this week with Phil McKnight, and he made the comment that his guitar, he was told this by Ernie Ball, by the way, so this is Ernie Ball telling Petrucci this, supposedly, is that his guitar is the number one selling signature model behind one other model, and that's the Les Paul, which we all know is not. It is a signature. It's not a signature. We go on Bernays about that. So, in other words, his really is of the living legends. This is the number one selling guitar, the signature, and I gotta take a little bit of issue with that. Now I know that there are different price levels of Petrucci's, but right now, a Petrucci, unless you get the cheap one, is $4,000.
Unless you're talking about the Sterling. If you include the Sterlings, maybe.
Yeah, the Eclipse color, for some reason, is $3,500, but all the other ones are coming in 38, 39. There's a couple of them that are 35. I mean, most of them are in the $4,000 category, and so with tax. And so I'm thinking to myself, really? Now, then, like you said, there's the what do they call the Sterling ones?
Yeah.
those are relatively inexpensive, but they're not really inexpensive.
No, yeah, they're still $1,000. Most of them are.
And for sterling, that's darn expensive.
So he also has the JPM, the old signature model too.
Right, but those are not current.
Yeah, but if you were to include those in the sales figures,
right.
Now you know how I felt about this, because I already told you we were talking about this topic. But
I went straight to where you did, so I'm going to let you say it. But
all right.
My mind went straight to that guy. I said, there is no way he outsold that guy,
right,
as far as signature models.
So signature model guitars. Of course, we know. Actually, there's another guy that might have sold more than him, and if you can consider international sales. And so, all right. So my initial reaction was, there's no way on God's green earth that the Majesty has sold more than the Ibanez Gem. There is no freaking way, because there was a time period in the 90s and the 2000s where everybody was playing gems. In addition to the fact that the guitar has also been out 30 years longer, 40 years longer, because the Gem's like 30 years old now. I think it's older than that. Came out in 89, 88. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's almost 40 years old.
It was right after he worked with David Lee Roth. So, because I know he was in talks with Ibanez at that time. Mm-hmm. So you look at the Ibanez Gem. Now a JEM, a real one, not the inexpensive model.
Well, there isn't a real one anymore. It's now a PIA. They don't make the high end one anymore.
Right, but you've got $1,799 for the Gem.
The highest end Gem they make now.
The highest end Gem,
because it was $3,500 to get
right. But
the
now
Japanese
that's the
one.
PIA.
Yeah,
right. But that's the PIA now. But I'm just saying that you still have a mid-level Gem. Mm-hmm. I mean,
you have cheap Gems for the last 15 years or so.
That's right. You've had these Gem Juniors for the last whatever years.
10 years on the Gem Junior, and I think they started doing the cheaper ones in the early 2000s, the ones that were like 1,700 and under.
Right. But you could look. I knew of several years that you couldn't get your hands on a Gem.
No,
because they were gone. Yeah. You just couldn't get one.
Right.
I mean, we're not talking about now when there's supply chain problems. You just couldn't get them. They were sold out.
It's not only the Gem. So like the other guitar actually that came to mind was the first Fender signature model, the Yngwie.
Oh yeah,
the Yngwie, because that's been around since like 1984, and it's existed in a bunch of different incarnations. They've had like 6 generations of that guitar, and it's still. I've only seen one ever. Yeah. And I've asked, and they're like, we get them in all the time, and they just come in and they go right out. And they make thousands of them a year. And there was at one point they were talking about the fact that has been Fender's best-selling guitar ever, other than the standards, in their entire line, which is wild. But it's a strange guitar, and a lot of people liked Yngwie during the 80s, and even into the mid and late 90s. And I'm sure there are plenty of people that are nostalgic for that and still collect those guitars. And he is very popular overseas. And so outside the United States, that guitar is probably just flying off the shelves, even more so than it is here. Which is why I kind of sit there and I think about like Ernie Ball saying this. It's like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no way. I'm just not buying it. There's no way.
I don't see it.
No. I'm
not saying that it doesn't sell well.
No.
But when we get them in the store,
I could see him. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, when we get them in the store, they sat. Like there's one in our store that's been there for a long time. And I mean, there are guitars that sit, but when the Majesties come in, Gems never last. Even used, they come in, they go out. Mm-hmm. But the Majesties, when they come in, there's always that one person that comes in and says, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. And they come in and they see it. They come in and see it. But the thing about expensive guitars that hit shelves when they're there and they're available, people, I don't know why this is. When a guitar comes in and goes out fast, there's that, oh, I have to buy it thing mentality that comes in. And I'm not saying it's a bad mentality or an undeserved mentality. I'm just saying that when people see a guitar that comes in and goes out fast, they're like, okay, when it comes in, I have to get it.
Yeah, because I have to get it when I see it. You know, it's that whole thing. Same thing I did with my Stomp.
Yeah, but when the gem comes in, or I mean when the Majesties come in, they tend to sit, and because they tend to sit, people aren't really. It's not that they don't want it; it's that there's that. Well, I can wait because it's going to be there for a while mentality, and I think that's the difference. You know, at least as far as the stuff that comes in stock, and so you know, and even when people would come in to look at guitars that were high end, PRS, Gibson, Fender, custom shops, you name it, Gem wasn't really the one that most people, or I mean, I'm sorry, not Gem. I keep saying Gem. Majesties weren't really the ones that people came in to look at. And that might just be my area. It might just be, but I don't know.
I think a couple of things you may be mistaking here. Number one, online retail is where those are selling. I would be willing to bet that most of those never touch store shelves because they're going through online distribution. I do know that it is definitely their most lucrative model over at Music Man, without a doubt. I see so many of those damn things floating around.
Sure of that.
I see so many of those damn things floating around. Like it doesn't shock me. I think in the next 10 years they might actually become the second best-selling signature model of all time. But I just don't see how they could have already done that. Not at the price point they're at. Even you know, looking at Sterling and being like including Sterling, because I don't know anybody who has a Sterling Music Man. The people I know that have Music Mans, they have the real deal, and they can't be producing that many of those. They're very expensive, and they're actually not hard, or they're not easy to make.
Right,
like the one with the carbon fiber top, with the hand etched carbon fiber, like pattern in it. No, I mean it's interesting. I don't know if it necessarily go that far, but I would like to play. I would like to play one. I know a lot of people have talked about them. It does not look on paper like it would be something I'm into. I have played. I lied. I have played one, and I actually did like it. But it was like the radius is too flat, and but everything else was cool about it. And honestly, like I can see that being sort of a modern archetype electric guitar. Now, here's my issue. You're having a conversation about, you know, signature guitar sales, and it's like, I hate signature guitars. I hate them.
We both do.
Like, why can't you just have a damn a Majesty and take the stupid fucking signature off of it? Sell me a Majesty without the first fret inlay being the music or the Dream Theater logo. Yeah. You know, come on, guys.
You know, so I find that interesting what you just said, because when Petrucci was talking about the demands that, and I say demands that not in a negative way, in a positive way, that he made with.
Can I just say one more thing before we go on? The reason I actually said that, because I didn't make my point clear, the reason I actually said that is because the Les Paul has transcended being a signature model.
Right.
And the Gem had also transcended being a signature model. Just barely. It had just barely been like, okay, now there are players that aren't Steve Vai playing this guitar. Okay, go on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to get to. So Petrucci was talking about all of these things. I wanted this here. I wanted that there. I wanted this other thing there. And I didn't want it to be like other signature models where they did this or they did that for sales purposes. Go ahead. I can see it.
Do you know who's eclipsed him? Long ago. Probably who has the best-selling signature guitar of all time. Other than...
Who's that?
Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
The Wolfgang. That absolutely outsold the gem for sure. For sure. I just wasn't thinking about it. And I just didn't think, but they're not considering that because it's been on 3 different brands,
Yep. Yep. I didn't even think about that. Is it 3 or 4?
3, because he didn't have a Charvel or Kramer.
He didn't have a Kramer. That's what I was going to ask. Did he have a Kramer?
Well, he had a Kramer, but it wasn't a Wolfgang.
Okay, so the Wolfgang definitely. You can't even get your hands on it. Well, maybe now you can. Let me say this: you got that right. There's no bloody way he's outsold the Wolfgang this year.
Yeah,
or the last few years,
or any guitar in the because the Wolfgang's been around since like '89.
Yeah, and that was the Fender, right?
No, it started out at it is now, but that started out as Ernie Ball Music Man.
Wait, Ernie Ball. That's right. It was Ernie Ball.
So they sold the Axis now. They're still selling his signature model. Think about that for a minute.
That's exactly. I was going to say. I wonder if they've compared that to the Axis model.
Well, but they're like, the Axis is a signature. No, the Axis plus the PV sales plus the Not to mention, they don't have access to any of those sales numbers. They have no clue how many have sold to any of these other companies, which is really the conversation here, right? I mean, we've been going on and on about who's better, but it's like realistically, Sterling is telling him something, and they have nothing to back it up with.
Well, so here's what I was saying. So he talked about how he wanted to switch here, and he wanted the thing this, and they wanted this here, and they were all good things. Don't get me wrong, but there were 2 things that he left out, and I thought that were very important. And I'm going to say this. Gibson, Fender, unfortunately, it's unfortunate for them. Every time they try to do something, they're like, you know what? We're going to make them lighter. And the people are like, I hate that. Or, you know what? We're going to put the switch over here. I hate that. Or we're going to change the knobs. Well, we don't like that. Because unfortunately, they want, I don't know if they want to now, but they wanted to do those things. And whenever they would venture into those places, people would say, no, I don't want those. We want the 1959, or the 1960 or whatever, Les Paul. Notice the ones that really sell off the shelves are the gosh darn ones that look at the $12,000 signature model, right? Or not $10,000 signature model from the guy from Radiohead. Right? Is it Adam Jones?
No, Ed O'Brien.
It's been in three. What is his name?
Ed O'Brien.
Oh, well, who's the Adam Jones? Who's
That's
he with?
Tool.
Okay, Tool, the Tool guy. So,
the Tool man.
See, I don't even know. I don't freaking care. But the thing is, they've had three iterations now of his guitar sell right off the shelf at $10,000 a piece. The Jerry Cantrell, people were like, "Oh, that's overpriced," but guess what? It's gone. The 1959 Carina, nothing special about those guitars at all. Carina guitars, the V's and the Explorers, poof.
Yeah, but all those guitars are always gone. They're small runs. Yeah. They don't count for anything.
No, what I'm saying is though, people eat up the old stuff that want that stuff. And what you talked about with Paul is exactly what Petrucci's fan base isn't me.
No,
and I should say fan base. The buyers of those guitars.
The buyers of those guitars. They're in fact, most of them are very modern, like either metal and gent players. I mean,
right. He just came out with an 8-string with the fan fret thing. That's not for somebody like me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a bad guitar. I'm not saying it's crap. I'm just saying, yeah.
Are you playing bass or are you playing guitar?
Right. You're one of their targets. And so I guess my point is, he's not coming after me with the JPs. He's coming after those people. And so to say that Les Paul modified the crap out of every Les Paul he had.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. He put switches and buttons and shit in there that nobody wanted. Can we
I want to close this out, but I want to close this out by having a a very pointed commentary. Like, what has John Petrucci even done in the last like 15 years? Because no, the last album he put out was with Dream Theater, and Dream Theater isn't a band anymore. Like, they haven't been a band since,
Didn't they just like put something out?
What did Mike Portnoy? Portnoy quit the band a long time ago. The band, there's no band anymore. Like, what is he? I mean, it's like what, like 2007, I think, was the last record with Portnoy.
Yeah, A View from the Top of the World is the new album.
Yeah, who cares? No offense, but who cares? And so, like, you're talking about the 8-string, and I'm like, dude, you are struggling to stay relevant. And at this point, like, it's a lot of people are buying those guitars out of nostalgia for Dream Theater, and it's like, I'm not. Listen, it's a great guitar. I know people are playing them because they like the guitar too, but like, there are a lot of Dream Theater fans, and Dream Theater fans are Legion loyal. And there are people that like have every record twice, and and all the import stuff, like, just because even it's the same stuff, like they have it because it's the import case. Their fans are like that, and I guarantee you there are fans of theirs that play guitar that have, or that don't even play guitar, that have Majesties hanging up in their house.
Oh, I'm
sure. Guarantee it. And I just kind of laugh because I'm like, this guy's not really even relevant anymore. And they're doubling down, and he's like acting. He's not acting. Like, he really does have all these preferences. I'm sure he's that dude. Yeah. But I just kind of laugh because I'm like, who cares? I honestly don't care if he's outsold everybody else, but I just think it's kind of funny because how would they have access to those numbers? That was kind of my reaction to this. Is like, wait a minute, what?
Yep.
But I don't like. If you like Petrucci's guitar, go buy one. If you like Petrucci, go buy one. I just think that Petrucci needs to bury the hatchet and get rid of Mike Mangini, because let's face it, he's the one that runs that band, and they need somebody to balance everybody else's ego.
That's right. Portnoy was the one.
Yeah, Portnoy was the guy for it. So, yeah. Anyway, which is funny because do you think John Young would be the one that would balance everybody's ego? But he seems so soft spoken, but apparently behind the scenes, like, he's very artistic and very like pushing his vision. Kind of deal.
Really?
So there's a lot of ego in that band. That's what I've heard from other people who are more familiar. So
that might be part of what Portnoy was getting away from.
I stopped listening to them after 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, after that record. So that would have been right before Portnoy's departure.
It's been all. You just said, I think, it's been almost 20 years.
Yeah, I think they had Octavarium. Yeah, it's like 15 years. Octavarium, and then I think they did like one other album after that, and then he. Because
I know I was living in New York when they broke off.
Yeah, so I don't know. I honestly don't really care. Like, I think the Majesty's a cool guitar. I think it's another guitar that's like way overpriced for what it is. In that. Any guitar,
I agree.
Any guitar that's $4,000, it's like, come on. And
that's a signature guitar.
Yeah, there's
definitely
a few $100s of overhead there.
Here's my problem with that. Can I just say this? Look, we just talked about the Gibsons that did the Adam Joneses, but those Adam Joneses, they've got every stupid little scratch, nick, ding, dang, whatever that they put in there, right?
They're replicas. They're not the same thing as this.
That's right. So they're supposed to be that expensive. Here's the problem I have with it. They do these guitars that are his guitar. He can literally, this is one guy that literally can walk into a Guitar Center anywhere, pick out his guitar and play it that night on stage. And it's the exact same damn guitar that he played last night from some other Guitar Center or whatever mom and pop store that has the money to put a freaking Petrucci in it, which I don't see mom and pops doing. But that's
they're out there. They're definitely out there.
Yeah. So here's the rub that I have with it, and you hit the nail on the head. $4,000.
Yeah.
$4,000 for a guitar that's really not a replica.
That's not a working man's guitar.
No,
it's not.
It's just
Ernie Ball does not produce a working man's guitar. Let's make this very clear. They don't have a model in their line that I would consider working man's, which is why I'm kind of like, that's a company that I kind of look at and I go, the hell are you guys doing? Like, what is going on over here? Because every guitar is a signature model, save for like 2. And then the ones that aren't signature models are available in like 2 finishes. And it's like, guys, who are you selling to? They're selling to fans. So their artist roster is really their sales tool. Okay, I mean that's what it is, and I'm okay with that. If you like like I said, if you like the guitar, buy it. If you don't buy it. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Price wise, I think that when I don't want to overstate things. I'm not saying it's a $3,000 or it's a $2,000 guitar, marked up. No, I think $3,500 is probably fair for that guitar. It's really unique. But $4,000, that's a bit much, guys.
Yeah, $3,800 for the higher end ones. Here's the thing that gets, and maybe it's his name that can do that. I mean, Satriani's, other than the chrome one, Satriani's at $2,700, $2,800. The muscle is 28, 29, 29. I mean, that's where I would picture Petrucci's model being, really. Mm-hmm. But I honestly think part of it is because it's Music Man.
Well, those guitars are wildly different in construction too. I think you should take a look. I think you should take a look at the construction of the Music Man. It is a whole other world.
Oh, I know. I said that. I think it's partly because of the fact that it's the Music Man. It's the way that they construct it. There are some very, very fine details in that Music Man.
Actually, hearing that the Satch is $2,700, I think that's a bargain. Quite frankly, I would be shocked if.
Yeah, Muscle Car Purple is $2,700.
Yeah, I think that's a bargain because I figured those would be about $3,200.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, so it is what it is. All right, let's get into our final topic here, which is we're going to start doing. We might actually do this topic more regularly. So we're going to talk about some hard truths, and I've got our prompt, so I'll read that because I'm good at reading. I can do that. I can't get an episode to record properly, but I could read. Look, Ma, I can read. I'll never do that again. Sorry. No amount of gear you buy will make you play any better. And most people spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Most people who spend thousands and thousands of dollars on gear can't play in time or in tune. Would you agree with this statement?
I would agree wholeheartedly.
There's more to this, but we're going to start with that part. I have run into people who have either vintage instruments, custom shop instruments, handmade boutique pedal boards with, amplifiers costing $5,000, who literally can't tell you the name of the notes they're playing, or who struggle with, counting 4/4. It's like, what the hell are you doing spending all this money? So there is the marketing stuff that goes into this, but there's some people who just like nice things. They want nice toys. And it's like, I'm not going to disparage those people. But we tend to be, as players, people who are like, man, I get excited about this shiny new piece of gear. I need to get this shiny new piece of gear. I need to get this shiny new piece of gear. And we'll lust after it. And we'll spend hours looking at it on Reverb or Sweetwater or whatever, and then read the manuals and stuff before we buy it and do all this research. And then, we get it and we still can't play it. What the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing? I know I bought, where is it? I bought this, all right? I had it in the last episode. HX Stomp. And I spent probably my last week just dialing in stuff on it. And I was playing at the same time. Today was the first day I was like, you know what? we're not going to screw around with tones. This is the first time I've actually like played guitar and actually like. Actually, it's not true. I've been rehearsing, and we'll talk about that in the gig report. But it's the first time I've actually played guitar and just played guitar this week. That wasn't like totally systematically this. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, and it like that hits home with this topic right here. I bought a piece of gear, and I would rather play with the piece of gear than focus on making better music.
Exactly. Can we take a pause 1 second?
Yeah.
I wanted to wait until you finish that. I'll be right back. Okay.
Apparently we're recording again. Okay.
I had a very similar experience. So I sat down Friday. I sat down with my Kemper, and I was dialing in volumes. I wanted to make all the volumes as even as possible, right? Across the board. You're never going to be perfect. So then I spent maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I called in a friend. I said, look, I got ear fatigue. I know I got ear fatigue. I can't seem to see if there's a difference. Listen for me. He said, okay, that one needs to come up a little bit. That needs to come down a little bit. Then we got it in. And then I sat and played for like 4 hours, just played. And I didn't care about what tone I was using. I didn't care about anything else. I just played. And finally, like, just, it's hard to lose yourself in it. You know what I mean? To give yourself to just playing and not worrying about, am I playing, how do I say this? Am I not playing it? I see a lot of people get caught up, like you were talking about tone. They get so caught up in tone. It's like they're just shoving it all in there.
It's like, shit, man, learn to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, make sure you can do that before you know, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E.
And that's the thing, though. You know, I watch people. We were talking about this with karaoke, and it comes into play, especially in guitar. It's this. There's a lot of karaoke singers, and then there's singers. So I go out because I enjoy karaoke. I have fun, you know, because it's more about not the quality of the singing, but the fun you have doing it.
It's just a party. Like, there's the same reason you should be going to an open jam or an open mic too. Is it's like, it's a party. You're not going to like show off.
Right.
You're not showcasing.
And it's not about you being better than the other person and everything else. Some places it is about trying to get a job. You're there. They do a quote unquote open mic. It's more kind of a live. Well,
you can always treat it that way, but like realistically, if you're in there, just be good to everybody else and be a nice dude and like have a good time.
Right. So, so I go to a couple of different karaoke's last week, or the 2 weeks. So one week I go to this one karaoke, and everybody is like this. They've got the microphone in their hand. They're like, these are the words right in front of them. They're like, and I was, you know, and it's like a bridge over troubled water. And there's no, like you were just talking about, there's no timing. They don't give a shit about and they sign up for every round. So they're up there the next one. And it's like,
I would just
imagine all the people living for today. And you go,
honestly, like,
how are you having fun with that? How is that fun?
I would be way happier with this idea of like, stop worrying about gear and start worrying about playing. If you were just like, if you could just be like, all right, I'm gonna play in time, because I can tell you this from not from the jam I go to. Like, let's be blunt. Those guys are good, but almost everybody there is just freaking excellent. But I go into guitar stores. I hear people playing. It's like, dude, if you can't keep the beat, then you need to be practicing that instead of coming to the store and looking at new amplifiers.
And that speaks to exactly what I was talking about. So I go to this other open mic, not open mic, sorry, this karaoke thing. The following week, my buddy goes, let's go to this one. We go to this one. And everybody's just having a good time, and they're loving it, they're laughing. Every single person in the place is singing almost every song. And guess what? Timing was better, voices were better, keys were better, notes was better, and there was a more enjoyable experience that came along with it. Why? Because they weren't worried about the exact
making sure they got the damn words right.
And the little bouncing ball that told them where to be, or the changing colors of the words, in other words. No, they just enjoyed it. Most of them didn't even care if they were singing the right words. They were having a blast. Mm-hmm. So it didn't matter. And that's exactly what I was going to get at, is if you get in there, and this goes to that guitar thing, if you sit down and just play the goddamn guitar, you're going to have a blast.
Yeah.
And all those things that we hate get transcended. And I say we hate because you don't like fighting with gear any more than I do.
No, I hate it. I'd rather sell it. Sell it if I can't get whatever. That's why I sold the Helix. Like, I have the HX Stomp now, and I'm actually getting along pretty well with this unit, mostly because it just integrates with the other stuff I already have, right? Like the same thing with the Captor X. Is like, I love it because I still get to use the stuff I really like, which is, real amps and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, all right. There's another little piece of this. Most of the gear that you buy or that you obsess over is marketed towards churches or other market segments that aren't even applicable to you. You don't need a fly rig to play in church or at the bar. Okay? And that's my example, right? You don't need a fly rig to play at church or at home or in the bar. There is this mythology right now that this unit, or its big brother, or the Kemper Stage, or the Quad Cortex, or the Axe FX 3 Supreme Punisher Edition, whatever the new one is. This new Challengers Edition for Street Fighter fans. Street Fighter Alpha, no, it's Axe FX 3 Alpha, New Challengers, Championship Edition, Turbo. Okay. So yeah. But these products are marketed with the idea that, well, you can just make any sound in your head just come out of these products. And that these products are a cheaper alternative to actually owning the stuff that does the sounds. Number one, I'm the first one to tell you, you can get great sounds out of those units. You are never going to get the real sound out of those units. It's a facsimile. We have not reached what do they call it, the moment where we can no longer tell the difference between AI and us. There's a name for it, the singularity or whatever. We have not reached that yet. Like that's not a thing yet. And for most folks, if you play country, blues, and jazz at your house, buy a Fender Deluxe, not a Deluxe Reverb, just a Tweed Deluxe, right? If you're into classic rock, and those genres, you will never spend time, like hours, sitting in front of your amp tweaking the knobs. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to be the same experience. Whereas if I did that with this, well, which amp do I use? And which model? Which cabinet should I plug it into? Which overdrive pedal should I put in front of it? What?
Right.
And it's like, you go down this rabbit hole of going in that path. And so, talking about the fly rig thing and why it's not applicable to 90% of buyers. Look, if you played a bar band and you show up to a club and you have a Helix and you didn't call ahead and ask, like, how many inputs do we have on the board? or you didn't, or like the rest of the band, drummer shows up, he's got his new drum mics and his new kit, and you're like, oh shit, because you just realized he's going to need 5 inputs. And the singer's going to need one, and the bass player's going to need at least one. And so now it's like, well, where am I going to plug my Helix in? Because they've only got an 8-channel board. Yeah, that's exactly the problem you're going to run into. Whereas if you have an amplifier, at least you can get through that situation, right? I look at fly rigs as in addition to, not primary or only. Okay. And so like for somebody like me, I've got so many damn different playing situations going on right now. We'll get to that in the gig report. It makes sense for me to have appropriate tools for appropriate jobs. It does not make sense for me to have what I had before, which was a Kemper, a $2,000 piece of equipment, that wasn't being used as an amplifier. It would have been used primarily as a direct box. In addition to having, a $2,000 Mesa Boogie rig behind me and another $2,000 Mesa Boogie rig next to me. So, something like ATEX Stomp, which is like $600, sort of makes more sense because for the playing situations I need it for, it's affordable. Tech 21 fly rig, right? It's a lot more simple. It's affordable. Could have gotten the job done for me. For situations where I would need that sort of thing. But the reality is the vast majority of us do not need that. You're not playing. No. Jim, when you told me you were playing silent stages, my reaction was bullshit. Because I'm like, nobody's playing silent stages for real. The only people that are church players. Okay. For the most part. And I know, Jim, you obviously are, but I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, 95% of playing situations, there's still monitors on the floor.
That's, what? And you have a very, very appropriate response, because most people use the silent stage thing as an excuse to buy the equipment. They're like, no, we're going silent stage, so I got to buy it. We're going silent stage so much. This is no kidding. We're going to have they're like a projector screen that you pull up from the ground.
Yeah, for the cabinets.
Fake cabinets that are on projector screens.
Projected.
So that's how silent and fake we're going. Okay, because we want to be able to fit anywhere and do any gig and play any space. So we have all of our own gear. When we plug in, we've got the snakes, everything goes with us. We plug in, go up, boom. But we can play, the bar could be as dead quiet as we want or as loud as we want. And anything in between. Now, all that said, I think that most people search for those pieces of gear that you're just talking about, the Kemper, the Helix, the Axe Effects, the Quad Cortex.
They're buying that stuff because they've told themselves, this is my path to having access to all the equipment the pros have.
Right.
That's really what it is. And it's absolutely not true.
That's right. But the bill of goods that they're sold, how do I say this, is because
that the gear is what makes those people great, the people are trying to emulate, and that the reality is, hearkening back to our original statement, it isn't the gear, it's whether you can play it. Right. And if you buy something like a Helix or whatever, you're going to spend more time dicking around with the software than you are playing. And if you are like 90% of the people that buy them.
Absolutely. So we come back to this. We come back right to what I'm about to say. If you're buying a piece of gear, and a lot of people do this, by the way, you see this online so much. What is the question that people are asking? What's the best plugin or for the Kemper? What's the best profile for the Helix? What's the best patch? so I can sound like David Gilmour. There isn't one. We've said this a million times. There isn't one.
Does it actually turn into 2 high watts with Fane speakers and?
It doesn't matter if it did. First of all, and this is the thing that they don't get. None of them get it because they're coming into it and it's not their fault. They're coming into guitar thinking the way that you would think about anything else. You have a car, you don't have 10 cars. You don't have any. They're not thinking
just
about
because
the
I can
fact
buy
that,
a Ferrari doesn't mean I'm qualified to drive it like a race car driver.
right. Well, there's that. That's what I was about to say. But you don't know how to drive it. So the fact is, it doesn't matter if it can make David Gilmour tones. You're not going to make it sound like David Gilmour.
Right.
And that's the problem. I'll never forget the first time I played it. My daughter wanted to sing a Shania Twain song. So I played it because that's how it goes. And I went, and I felt like Schroeder when he's with Lucy.
Yeah.
And he plays this. She goes, play Jingle Bells, and he plays this beautiful rendition of Jingle Bells. She goes, no, Jingle Bells, ho, 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 and Santa Claus. And he goes, and he plays it a little more simply. And she goes, no, pretty girls. And then he goes, ding, 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 ding. She goes, that's it. The fact is that my daughter couldn't hear the basic harmonic structure because of all of the stuff that John Mutt Lang
the sparkly stuff on top.
it.
The sparkly stuff on top, right?
And she's like, no, it's missing all the sparkly stuff. It's missing the pretty girls and the ho 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 in other words, it isn't what she did. And I had to explain to her. I go, but that's not the song.
Right.
Shania didn't bring that into John. Mutt wrote all this other crap on top of it. And my point is that we can buy all gear we want and we can pepper spray it with everything we want to do. I've got a new pedal coming in. A lot of people can say, well, Jim, you got a new pedal coming in. That pedal is so I don't have to put a whammy bar on all these friggin' hardtails and can still get a whammy sound with it. If it doesn't do what I want to do, I'll sell it. I don't care. But the point is that I'm not buying it because I want to sound like somebody else. I'm buying it because I want to add a little bit of a whammy to some of my sounds. But I want to sound like me doing it. It's the same as a lot of people are like, oh, you should get the Jimi Hendrix wire. You should get the Ibanez this wire. You
Just
should
get
the,
one you like.
one. No, I got the one I like, and I love that wah. I can't get another wah to sound like it or feel like it.
Which one do you have again?
And I have I can tell you a million times. It's the Slash signature wah that is normally packaged with his fuzz box.
Yeah.
There's like a red wah with a red fuzz box, right? Well, what happened was we got one in. The Guitar Center got one in, and the fuzz box was damaged. And Dunlop said, just sell the wah separately. And so, but go ahead and trash the whole thing. So they were able to sell it for $120 or whatever it was, $110 or whatever. So I got that wah at a super good sale because it's normally in a $350, $400 package. So I got the wah at a super good sale, and I love it. And it's probably nothing more than a Crybaby 95Q. It's probably
they're different. They are actually different, but
it might be. I don't know.
I played.
don't care.
I actually sat in the store and I A/B'd all of the wahs that Dunlop was putting out that they had in stock, and they are.
Which one did you like?
They're quite different. I actually had a couple I liked. I liked the Kirk Hammett one, which is everybody laughs because it's like. That's like the silliest wah, but if you're playing really saturated distortion stuff, it sounds great. And I ended up buying a Cantrell. And I actually like the GCB, the Q95 or whatever. So
yeah, the Q95. But my point is that there's always this the reason you're buying the pedal or the guitar or whatever should not be because you're chasing a tone that will make you better. Because the tone isn't that tone's not going to
you just need to practice. Like, it's not that hard. Take the $50 you put aside every month to buy a pedal every 3 months, and go buy lessons. or go buy, do something that inspires you to play.
Get something nice for your kids. I mean,
yeah, I mean, honestly,
yeah, because the truth of the matter is, whatever you do should make. If buying gear makes you feel good inside, go for it. You really should. But the truth is that it's not going to make you a better player. It may give you a voice you didn't have before. That I can live with. That I can see. The reason I still have a Stratocaster is because every time I play it, I go, oh yeah, that's why I have it. Because it sounds like that. And I don't care what anybody says. Oh yeah, I could get my Les Paul to sound like that, or I could get my this or that to the Strats sound like a Strat.
Right.
And yeah, and I know you've got your is S500?
Yeah.
Yeah. And your S500 is awesome, by the way. You make that thing sing like nobody's business. But I just had a buddy of mine. He has he has two Strats, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has a Strat that Fender put out this, oh, look at this. It's so nice, and it's got all these super nice they're lace sensors.
Okay.
And they're a little more, and he got a
they're
plain
aggressive.
old. Yep, they're aggressive. He got a plain old white, Olympic white, beautiful, by the way, SSS Strat with the plain old pickups in it. And guess what? I was like, he played it the other night. I said, that's a Strat.
Yeah.
Your other one's good, and it's a Strat.
It's just not the same thing.
That's the Strat. I said, when you play that, because he loves Hendrix and all that stuff. When he played it, I was like, that's a Strat. That other one is not a Strat. It's a Strat, but it's not a Strat. That's a Strat.
All right, let's move on to the gig report. I think it's time.
Sure.
All right. Oh, I did the wrong thing. I made a title disappear. This is fun because I'm not using my control panel tonight. So I have to I just didn't turn it on my phone. So there we go. All right, now we're talking about gig report. that was interesting. Ooh. All right. So as is customary, I'll go first. I actually have stuff to share, Jim. Stuff you probably didn't know yet. So
no, because we haven't talked much this week.
All right. So I'm working with a person locally. They asked me to come and rehearse with them, or not rehearse, but come out to I don't want to call it tryout, but it's not even a tryout really. Like I already basically had the gig when I walked in.
Right. So
he kept moving the date around, and I was like, it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Pick a day, doesn't matter. He wanted to do Friday, Saturday, or something, and then we ended up doing like Wednesday last week. So we actually moved it up. It kept getting moved closer, which I was like, okay,
that's backwards from what I'm used to. But
I can do that. Like that's fine. That's actually better because that means you're chomping at the bit, and I'm okay with that. So he calls me. He says, "There's a studio in Geneva," and he said, "I want to meet at the studio, the studio, and then we'll play there." So immediately I'm going, well, the guy cares enough. He's going to spend $20 or $40 to rent the place for an hour or two. So I get down there, walk in, and he's got a guitar and a bass set up, and he's using house equipment to rehearse, but obviously he has his own stuff too, but easier because he doesn't have to haul things. And I set my Fillmore up, and I plug my HX Stomp in. I didn't use anything other than the HX Stomp. And actually, no drive pedals. The drive pedals were provided by the HX Stomp, which is wild. But I can get most of my sounds out of that. The Sunface, or not Sunface, the Analog Band King of Tone that's in there, and then the Rat. It's actually got two rats. The one that sounds better. Okay, there's two rats. One of them sounds good. The other one sounds bad. So I don't even know which one it is. But we jammed a couple tunes. We played "Knock on Heaven's Door," which I'll get in a minute why this is funny. We played "Paint It Black." We played one of my songs. We played one of his songs. Okay, so we worked kind of through one of each of our tunes. His song was not difficult to play. My song was significantly more difficult for him to pick up, and there's a lot of shit going on in it, and it's like noticeably so, and it's like I don't fault anybody for like having trouble picking up one of my songs, because I spent all day transposing music for the next time we're gonna get together, and like not transposing but transcribing, and I was looking at one of my songs that I wrote like 3 years ago, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, what's the chord progression here? And I start like strumming chords along with it, and I'm like, what? I don't know what the hell I was thinking, because the bass isn't following the chord progression. Like, what in God's name is going on here? And I know that there was a conscious decision to do what I did, and I can't, for the life of me, remember what the hell I did. So, could you imagine learning somebody else's music, and like you're like, he's playing these chords, and it's like, bass line's doing something else. It's just like going in a different direction, and tried to explain that to somebody, like, oh yeah. So I ended up actually tabbing it out for the guy, because I'm like, I just tab it out. This is what you're going to start with. You can make the part your own however you see fit, but this is what we need to do. Okay, so and it was it was an interesting experience. But so like first thing that happened, I get in, I plug in, we talk for a little bit, and then he says, let's play Knock on Heaven's Door. Do you know it? I said, I have played it. I said, I don't necessarily know it per se. And he goes, oh, he's like, I forgot to tell you, I'm in flat tuning. Now I have a PRS and it has a floating trem. So I'm like, I can transpose it. So I'm thinking it's in G, it's G, D, C, or G, D, A minor, G, D, C. All right. So I'm like, oh, it's G flat, so now you gotta D flat, C flat, playing bar chords and just flatten it. And so
actually, the original recording,
it's probably in flat initially. Anyway, it might have been flat originally. I don't know. It actually, knowing if
I'm thinking of Working or not Working Man, Simple Man. That
was it. The Rolling Stone? Is it the Rolling Stones that recorded that originally, or was it somebody else that did?
Somebody else did it originally.
I think it was. I forgot who it was originally, but
was Dylan.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just didn't know if it was him or if it was somebody else. Because I know like Wild Horses is Burrito Brothers, the Flying Burrito Brothers, or whatever. Anyway, so we played that, and I kept screwing up the chord progression because I'm playing in flat. I'm playing, I'm transposing on the fly, and he get the end, and I said, I'm sorry, it was rough. And he goes, no, it's not a big deal. He's like, I said, if I'd written it down, I would have written it down in the actual notes we're playing, so that I could look at it while I'm playing it, and I wouldn't screw up, because we're playing, I'm not used to playing flat tuning. I can't tune my guitar flat, so I have to transpose. Like, I don't have any other option. So we've been going back and forth on the next time we get together on whether we're going to be doing flat tuning or whether standard. And I'm like, well, I can't do flat tuning. Like, I don't think you understand. I have to have my guitar set up for that. And quite frankly, I'm not going to go take my guitar and get set up for that when I've got other gigs to do too.
That are in standard.
Right. It's like, I don't have 6 guitars and two great ones that I'm going to devote to this project, because this is probably going to be the passion project. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think that's going to work out. So I would rather just learn to transpose everything and just do it that way. Well, then he wants to play Paint It Black. And I go, in flat tuning? Because I'm in standard. How am I going to play Paint It Black when one of the main riffs requires an open string?
Yep.
So
Paint It Black is an open tuning too. So,
well, it can be, okay, depending on how you play it.
My point is, they use a lot of open strings. So, yeah, I just looked up. I was right. It was Bob Dylan. By the way, he wrote it in G, and it was. I don't know if Clapton, who also famously did it, but when Guns N' Roses did it, they went to
flat
tuning, because they tuned everything flat.
Yeah, correct.
So, I'm looking at, we're talking about going to flat tuning in Fitching Company for the singers, but I have enough guitars.
Yeah, you could make that work. Like, that's not a big deal.
I'll just throw one of my 4 Les Pauls into.
But in my situation, it's like, dude, I have so many other playing engagements. I'm not putting this guitar in flat tuning. Are you high?
No. And that's the other thing. I don't know if I want number one. Well, first of all, she's a fixed tailpiece, so it is easier to tune her down, tune her back up. But the fact is that if I put Riker in a flat tuning, it's probably going to stay in a flat tuning.
Right.
I'm not going to tune it down. Tune it
will
up.
cause. So even if I was to do that with a guitar with a fixed bridge, it's going to cause intonation issues.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Which is why I'm like, why do people? All right, this is Gig Report, but why do people do this? I mean, other than it's easier on the vocals, and it's always the singer that wants to do it, right? But it's like, how about you just pick songs that are in your range? Like,
well, yeah, I don't think that it's. We're not doing it for the singer.
No, but I mean, like I've run into a lot of this over the years, and the singer wants to do it, or
right. The reason we're doing it is because a lot of the songs that we're covering now are tuned, and we're having to bring them up because it's Guns N' Roses has to come up. It's
right.
Hendrix, it's got to come up. It's Stevie Ray Vaughan, it's got to come up. It's
not all that stuff is transposable, right?
Right, and so we're kind of going, and a lot of new music. A lot of your new music, especially if you do any country or you do pop music, unfortunately, there's a lot of flat keys. There's a lot of B flat. There's a lot of F.
Yeah, because they're written on keyboards and they're played on keyboards in the studio. And the guy forgot to drag everything in MIDI up one step. It's like what the hell?
Up a half step, which they could have done. And so the fact of the matter is that we're fighting the popularity of the flat tuning that everybody's going to. So we're kind of doing that for that sake. We're doing one that's drop D, but it's actually drop D down a half step. So it's drop C sharp. So it's like, all right, we gotta do something and it's already high, and then we're going higher.
Well, fortunately, when we played Painted Black, he decided to tune up. Okay.
Yeah. That's good.
So and when he played bass, he was tuned up, and so everything was cool. We played his tune and it was all good, and then like we played my tune and probably burned a half hour and then jammed out for the remainder. So it's like, I think it's going to be a good situation, and it's cool that like I've finally run into somebody who's serious enough about it to actually put some money into it. But we'll see how it goes. Cause I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to get into a situation where I'm going to be running things. I definitely don't want to be in a situation where I'm the sole contributor to everything. And I hear it's all my stuff and this is all my say, because that's what happens. So it's like, if you give them all the music, then it's all of a sudden, well, this is your project. Like, why don't you just run things? I don't want to do that. I want input from everybody. Like, I want to do something collaborative. That's important to me.
That's the word I was going to use.
So I'm just like, I have to play my cards right, because I could just see this going into one of those situations where, other guys contributing lyrics and stuff, and I'm writing a lot of the music, and I just don't want to. I would rather have it way more balanced than that. So we'll be meeting with the drummer actually tomorrow night, and doing our thing for the first time. But actually, I wanted to comment a little bit on the studio. So this place is like a little hole in the wall shop in the middle of a downtown district in like a suburban area, and he had like a big Sony console in there, and just like lots of old interesting gear, and like it's just it was a cool vibe. You go into a shop in a downtown area, and the front room is always the showroom, where they have everything at, and the back room was the studio, like the console room, right, and the control room, and then there's like a big glass wall, obviously, like you'd normally see. But it was funny because the entryway, like the normal area where you would buy all your merchandise, is actually the live room, and you're like, Well, that's kind of weird. So you're playing in there, and like you could see people walking by out front. You know, they can't hear you. They can see you, but they can't hear you.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All the ones I've been in, the rooms that you rent are dingy shitholes that are in the back, you know. And
Well, this isn't a rehearsal studio. This is an actual like recording studio that he rents as a rehearsal studio. A lot of the ones that are around today, the small independently owned ones, will do rehearsals at a reduced rate because they ain't got nothing else going on and they want to make money off the space. So
yeah, they may as well, because if they're not making money off an instructor that's in there giving lessons, they may as well make $50 or whatever on the band. Right. So, speaking to that, is that your gig report? You got anything else?
Yeah, I'm all done.
Okay. So, yeah, so I had church. I did church, did my standard songs. It's funny because church songs, I don't know if this makes me a bad Christian or what, but I don't listen to Christian music outside of pretty much prepping for church, going to church, and then leaving, right? So what I typically do is I'll listen to them like a couple times the night before, play them through. The problem I have, and I'll get to this in a second because it kind of speaks to what you just went through. And I'll go to church and I'll play them again. And on the way, I have the distance to church is just enough to hear all the songs.
One time.
One time. So they're kind of fresh in my head. The problem I have with the church right now, and I'm trying to fix this, they had a musical director that played everything in either G or C.
Oh.
Because I think the only key he knew was G major and C major. So when I go to play everything's either in A minor, which is C major, or G
or E minor.
So I'm like, that's not the right key for this song. So when I'm sitting at home and I'm playing through it, I'm like, why am I playing through all these solos? I'm not going to play them that way. I'm even going to be close when I get to the church. So I've been lazy, which actually makes me work harder, which is what I was getting at. So I get into the church and I'm having to move the music in my head while I hear it. Because here's Amy Grant and here's our singers in the church.
Right.
Like, right. Or Michael W. Smith, or
insert popular Christian singer here.
Whoever, right. Insert Hillsong music here, and then our church making a joyful noise. Actually, down here somewhere. It's out of the camera's view. So, but it can be fun and interesting. I'll just say that. But I've been using the Kemper, and the Kemper makes it easy. Again, I just walk in, and I had a very non-Christian thing happen to me, and I had a very un-Christian reaction. So I'm walking in the church. We have rehearsal every other Thursday. So last week was rehearsal, and I go to walk in to church. And as I'm walking towards the church, there's a double door.
Right.
People walking in. And there's these two women in front of me. And I'm behind with my arms full.
Right.
I have a guitar in this hand. I have a Kemper in this hand.
I think the doors are going to close.
I am not 6 feet behind the woman in front of me. I'm giving enough room that she can get through the door. Nobody's wearing any masks or anything like that. So I figure I walk right along. The woman in front of me goes in, and the other woman pulls the doors closed in front of me.
Yeah, so you're 6 feet away, and they shut the doors in front of you.
They didn't just let him close, because I might have been able to stick
it's
a
like
foot
they were trying
in
to keep you out, like he doesn't need to come in here.
And so I put my stuff down. I opened both doors. I put my feet way wide and I walk through. And I said some choice words having to do with the size of their rear ends and a few other things.
You're going to hell.
They walk through, They walk right through the church and right out the back door. They were using our church as a shortcut
Oh my gosh.
to get from our parking lot to a building behind us.
Oh my
Instead of
gosh.
walking on the path around the church. I go into the main church and I said, "Do you know what just happened to me?" And I explained them. I did not hold anything back. I told them that I needed to pray for what I just said. And I said, and they said, yeah, those people, they just walk right through our church like they own it. And I said, but why are they walking through the church? She goes, we really need to lock them out. Because they just use us as a shortcut.
Wait until stuff starts going up missing.
That's exactly what she was talking about. And I said, well, I would be mostly worried about the food. So I said, then pray for me for saying that. But so I said, anyway, so that was my church one. We had a rehearsal. I was going to be playing bass for our regular band that I play guitar for on our next gig. I found a bass player to take my spot so I could go back to guitar. And luckily, the guy that was going to replace me on guitar was like, yeah, Jim, whatever's best for the band, that's what you do. Get back to guitar. So I'm going back to guitar. And it's funny because we're doing, so I'm going to, I don't know if I explained this. So if I did say this before, I need you to stop me, but I'm going to kind of go into it. So one of the songs we do is Hurt So Good. And I play it very specifically.
Yeah,
but
I think we
was on
talked about
bass
this last week. Yeah.
But here's the thing. So the guys said he was playing it. We don't see a problem. I said, I want to show you how to play it right. I had Riker over my shoulder. I said, let me show you how to play this right. And they go, yeah, that's it. That's what he played. I said, no, it's not. I'll show you what he played. So then I did it. They go, oh, yeah, that's right. I was like, but it's funny because it's just the way he accented the same exact chord. It was the same chord. But it was like, are you playing lead guitar or lead guitar? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. L-E-A-D, right? It's L-E-A-D. Lead or lead. That was what I was kind of doing. I was like, it's not that he was playing the wrong chord. We were both playing A major chords, but he's playing it, accentuating the low A at that point, and it needs to be accentuating the higher A at that point. The 5, he's not really playing the 5 chord. He's kind of playing the inversion, the mm-hmm. 5th over the 1, the second inversion, and then accentuating the A after that. And so I kind of showed them that, and they were like, oh, yeah, that's right. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. No amount of gear is going to tell you to play that correctly. Because I said, what's important? And they go, well, why is it important? You're still playing an A. I go, because it's voice leading my vocal. So it's very important because it's part of my melody line. You're thinking it's a harmony, but it's actually voice leading my melody line. And if you voice lead that wrong, I'm going to come in low, which means my whole thing is blown. So I got to hear the right tones. I'm going to sing it wrong.
I'm actually dealing with the same thing with Painted Black because that lead line, the main part of the song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's normally with a drone that's higher than the melody line. Okay. But because I have to play it in flat tuning, or I have to transpose it, I'm now playing an E flat that is lower than the melody line, which makes it sound very classical antiquity thing. Yep. So it matters. It does.
That's
People
right.
are like, oh, it doesn't matter. No, it changed the whole feel of the song now because it doesn't feel like a raga thing anymore. Now it feels like a classical thing, which is okay with that song. But
are you using any kind of sitar emulation?
No, I'm just being a badass and making it sound good. That's what I'm doing. I somehow know how to like make it sound like there's a sitar going on. I don't know.
I could see the S500 doing that. I don't know.
I do it with my PRS. And
I just don't know the PRS well enough.
Well, now it's going to sound like a. It's gonna sound pretty heavy metal. Like this is basically because it's gonna be very like it sounds like you're playing in harmonic minor, you know, because you are basically playing in harmonic minor. The whole song's in harmonic minor. It's not really an Indian tuning or anything.
No.
It was in drop D though. I think double drop D originally, which is weird because the drone is an E, so it's like, how the hell did they pull that shit off?
Capo? I don't know.
It must have been.
Because it's a cool song. Was that a sitar? I seem to remember reading
it is a sitar on the original record. It's a choral sitar. One of the first uses of them.
Yep.
Actually, no, it's not even a choral sitar. It's a real sitar.
Right.
I take it back because the choral sitar, I think the song predates that. That's an old song. Like, people don't realize that was like I don't think that was just after the Rolling Stones started writing their own music.
Yes, that's one of the first ones that they wrote, and that was mid '60s, if I remember correctly.
If not the first song they wrote.
That is a very early song in their catalog. What they wrote, because that is 1966.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
All right. Let's get the hell out of here. I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And tonight we've been Practical Guitarists.